everybody. There is no intro to this bag today because we are going to learn to make it with the pattern. I haven't ever made this bag before, so we're going to see how I go. So I've got all my stuff ready. I've got all my hardware in a bag because I prepped it the other day. So we can probably add that to my little Lord of the Rings bowl. And then we're going to get so I've got my laptop slightly off to the side. I'm just going to move that off camera so it's not annoying. There we go. And we're going to do it in the order that the pattern says. So, first up is interface. We've done that. So we're making the belt first. So this is my belt piece. And then, so we've got one long bit. I don't need to do the other part. So we're going to put some double-sided tape along this. I do love the way this bag looks. That's why I'm super keen to make it. And it's been cut out for ages, but life keeps getting in my way. So I'm just going to put double-sided tape. Now, a lot of you ask me what brand my double-sided tape is. This particular one is called Express It. It's from Spotlight. It's a 50-meter roll for about $6, I think. And I just got this one because my local, what's it called? My local shop where I normally buy it was out. So I'm just going to fold over both sides. Now this is quite a thick vinyl. So it might need some extra pressure to make it stay. I'm not sure yet. But this is the snakeskin vinyl from Spotlight that I've been meaning to do something with for ages. So it's got this really cool kind of, it gets like bigger and smaller with its scales. I quite liked it. So I bought a meter. And I just thought that this bag would look really cool in it with some gunmetal grey hardware to keep it all nice and dark, since it's got a lot of black in the green. So I'm just going to keep doing this. You'll notice that this is taking me longer than normal because I'm making sure it's really pushed down, and I'm making sure I really push on the sides to make sure it's not going to pop up on me, because that's obviously not what we want either. So I won't be doing the buckle because I do have buckles, but they are for another bag that I hopefully am going to make this week, since I haven't done a buckle bag before. While I'm doing this, I'm also going to state I'm going to do like a troubleshooting video. So things that you find tricky or don't understand, or these things keep happening to you and you don't know why. I have started a Facebook thread, but if you don't have Facebook, feel free to email me so I can include it in the video. I'm either going to do it Thursday this week or early next week. I thought maybe I'd leave it for the whole weekend for everybody to let me know what they want to see on it. But yeah, anything that you don't properly understand, like I'm gonna do like full close-ups on how to do like roll hems and removal of rivets that you put in wrong, or you just want to take it out because you've changed your mind or whatever. Alright, I'm gonna score this on the edge of my table just to make sure it's gonna stay. Now, because this is so thick, I'm actually not going to add any more to this. I've made sure it's right up against each other, so I'm just going to stitch it as is. So I'm going to put my stitch length on 4, and I'm going to stitch at the edges, and then also in the center. So it's going to have a lot of stitches on it. But I kind of like the green thread contrast. I just have to make sure that this doesn't hit the camera as it comes off the table. So I'm stitching 1/8 of an inch from the edge. then I'm going to needle down and pivot and go across the end. Needle down, bring it back. Now, as you can see, this section is lifting. And because I want to make sure that it's going to stay exactly where I want it to, I am actually going to put some wonder clips on it because I want them to butt right up against each other. The busyness of the vinyl will actually hide the fact that there's a joint underneath, I think. So I know this seems excessive, but usually I wouldn't care as much because I've got another piece overlaying this joint so you don't see it. And it's lifted all the way because, you know, that's the way, oops, threw that one on the floor. You don't have to make your strap this way. You could just add like I could have got like a bold green and overlaid it on top, but it's just not the look I'm going for. I always like to stop and clean up the clips as I go. Too much mess in my immediate area does not work out well for me. Okay, so now I'm going to come across all the way and I'm going to back stitch to the center. And I want to stitch like 1/8 of an inch each side of the center. So I'm just going to check what that means for here. So the edge of my foot is going to run along the stitches that I've done. And then that's going to make sure that it doesn't kind of flap open. And it's going to look cool. I could have just done the 2 center ones and that also would have worked out. But it's all about the details. And this is also really good. If you're learning to sew, this is really good practice to learn to do straight lines. And then we're back on that end line. So we're going to come across probably about 2 stitches. And then come back down the other side. And voila. So I've now got these 4 fun lines. It looks good. I like it. It's also going to make sure that the strap's not going to flap open or anything. So while I'm here and I've got the strap, I am just going to add my hardware. So I've got a strap adjuster. This is my old style, so I'm using them up. There's nothing wrong with them. I prefer the solid ones. I think they work better. Alright, so we want the join side on the bottom. So I'm just going to feed that around the middle loop like this. And I'm just going to feed a little bit extra in. And I'm going to do my cross zigzaggy thing that I'm recently obsessed with. So I'm going to stitch, I always stitch closest to the metal part first. Because that's the bit that's the trickiest. Because the metal's in the way. And then we can come down and do the other end. And then across, needle down, and then angle it up. I'm also going to pull that metal out of the way so it doesn't get in the way, and do a back stitch. Trim off all of my beautiful tails. These are getting blunt. I think it's time for a new pair. The whole cutting alfoil or aluminium foil, aluminum, however you say it, doesn't really work out for me. I've tried it. It never made them any kind of better. So So then I'm going to put this on the end. So I've gone up and through the strap adjuster, and then I'm going to go over the end, fold it over, and do that same thing. I have a sneaking suspicion my overlight is dying. It's not as bright as it was when I started. And then up. Doesn't matter which way you twist it, as you can tell. Whoopsies. Dropping everything today. Okay. Strap is done. I can pop that aside. Continue on to the next section, which is the wristlet strap. So we're going to do pretty much the same thing again, just with less hardware. So in the center, peel off the backing, fold it in. Now instead of stitching this, I will be using a rivet. And I'm going to do the same stitching I did on the other one for consistency purposes. You want everything to look the same. I could just do the 2 stitches down the middle, but it's clearly not who I am. All right. So you can do the middle 2 or you can do the edge 2. I'm going to just start on the edge because it's what I did before. Needle down across the bottom. So all of this is done at 1/8 of an inch. Or for me, it's the center of my foot. Whenever you're trying to do straight lines, never watch your needle. That's what everybody falls into, that trap. You don't watch the needle. You watch a point on your foot or the plate or wherever but the needle. Needle down, over. It's usually about 2 stitches, give or take. And then back stitch when we get to there. Oh, that was good timing. I just ran out of bobbin thread. Look at that. That is winning bobbin roulette right there. I have prepared another one right before this video. I'm going to attempt to have no stops in this one, although I am expecting some packages today, so the Percy might show up. You never know. One full rotation, pulls up that bobbin thread, and then we're going to grab... I actually didn't need to do any of that to do this. So I'm going to put the join side on the flat side of this, and then I'm just going to bring it up. And a good way to eliminate bulk is to overlap it like this. So you're going to put this one up against the metal and then just pull this one over. So there's only 3 layers there. And then you can put a rivet in that. So I'm just going to grab some Wonder Clips and hold it in place while I grab my rivet press. And some rivets. So I keep mine in organized little containers. I like to keep my top or my cap separated from my post because that's what I find the easiest. So I'm not digging around. I can just stick my hand in and know what it is that I'm grabbing. But if you don't have a lot of room, you can put them together. I know Spotlight just got new containers like my ones over here, but all the drawers have a split in the center. So you could put half and half in one drawer. I thought that was really cool. I just don't need it. So I'm going to put my hole in the center, like so, and then push my post through. And because it's only 3 layers, it should stick out enough. You never want it overly heaps, but enough. So these aren't going far this time because I know I'm going to need it more. And then I'm just going to squish that down. And that worked out lovely. So that is the other strap done. Whoa. I'm just going to pop all of that aside so I've got more space. So next up is the flap. So I've got all my pieces. I was smart when I did this, and I've used alligator clips to pin all the pieces together. I had like a moment when I was prepping this one, which I'm relatively proud of. So, outside, because this is such a thick vinyl, I didn't actually put any interfacing on it because it is really, really stiff. But on the lining piece, I have put my stabilizer. So it's going to help with the magnetic snap. So we need to install the magnetic snap. So on the flap, you always put the male half, which is the bit that sticks out. So that's male, and then that's female, and female's also usually thicker. You can get really thin magnet ones. I have seen them. They do exist, but I don't use them because I don't have them. All right, so we want to find the center like that. And then it does actually have on your thing where to put your snap. So I am going to put it there. So I've got my craft knife handy. That one is a Kaiser Craft, but I've also got like a cheap $2 shop one that lives over at my cutting table. I needed the two because I kept having to run back and forth and grab it while I'm prepping stuff. Because quite often, off camera, I will do all of this while I'm prepping, so it's done. But I don't do that while I'm recording, because then you miss a step. I don't want you to think that I'm skipping parts. Or that it's a big secret on how I do it. So, now, this is fabric. So before I put this in, and I do this every time, I go to put it in and go, no, it's fabric. You want some Frayed Stopper glue. So I've got this one. As you can see, it's very well used. It's like years old because you only use a tiny amount of it. Although I am down to probably the last quarter of the bottle. So I just squeeze it till I see it go into the end. And then you should just be able to dab it, except I think my end is blocked. It was. So this comes out really, really fast like water. So you just want to like touch it and that's it. So that tiny dot that I did, put all of that glue on there. I don't know if you can see it, but it is a lot. So don't squeeze it. I did that the first time I opened it because I didn't realize it was so runny, and I just basically wrecked the whole piece of fabric I was using. Alright, so you pop them in. I like to bend them out. I know some people bend them in, but I think that it's too high then, and that way it looks flatter to me. So now we're going to put these right sides together. If you want to, you can grab some clips. Oh, what happened there? Clips are not the worst idea I've had today. Okay, and so we're going to go back to a joining stitch length and stitch around. Okay. I just need to check what our stitch seam allowance is, which should be found up the top. Seam eighths are 3/8. So 3/8 of an inch is what we're now going to do. Which for me is there. So we're going to stitch and back stitch. You just want to sweep around that bend. If you want this super pointy, you can stop there, needle down and angle. Otherwise, you can sweep around that bend to make it a little less sharp. That is a personal sewing preference. I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to take my zigzag scissors or pinking shears and I'm going to trim down all of that excess. Now these are on their last legs, I know that. I was going to take them to a place to get them sharpened, but there isn't one around here. Although, because this is so thick, it is actually cutting quite well. Much better than I thought they were going to. So that is now trimmed down. I got close to, but not too close to the stitches, because you don't want to accidentally get them. So now I'm going to take that end and push it in, because again, this is very, very firm. This is thick like a leather, actually. It is quite nice. I bought my meter in the 40% off sale. I'm just going to poke out that bend. I'm actually going to grab my flute cleaner for this. So this is what I use to poke things, because it's pokey enough that it pokes it out, but it's gentle enough that it doesn't go through my projects. I know lots of people use chopsticks. I did try that method, and you know what? I'm too rough, and I just pushed it straight through. So this one, I can be as rough as I like, and I've had no issues so far. Okay. I also like to run it along the edge of the seam, because it makes sure that everything's pushed right out. So now I'm going to go back up to my 4mm stitch length, and I'm going to top stitch all the way around, and I'm also going to stitch along the top because we don't want to see. So I might start on the top so that my back stitch won't be seen. Not that it should be anyway, but still. And then we're going to go needle down and pivot. So I'm doing a 1/8 of an inch top stitch, and I'm going slowly because this is thick. I don't want it to distort the stitches and make them too close together. I want them to look lovely. So sometimes when you go too fast on thicker things, your stitches will bunch up closer because it can't push it out. Alright. Flap is done. I like it. We've done that. So we're going to grab this, which is a friction textile, which is erasable. We're just going to mark a line where it says to mark a line. So there, like that. So it's going to be erasable. It's there where it needs to be. So we can pop that back in the tub and go on to the next bit. So prepare the flap. So we're not doing turn lock, but we are doing, we've got a our template. So I'm going to need this template for all of these lines. Oh, did that just go really blurry? So I'm just going to take this and I'm actually going to punch the hole with my hole punch where the snap's going to need to go, because now it's an easy access to place it. So we're going to grab, again, see, I've got my alligator clip. It just helps to keep everything in the box organized. Otherwise it's a chaotic mess, like I'm sure you see most times when I do videos. I'm like hunting for stuff. Now, everything that needs to join together is together. Alright, so I'm just going to stick my pen in that hole I just made in my pattern piece. And then I'm going to pick off the backing because it didn't work and go again. There we go. So I can see that nice and clearly. You won't be able to see it on camera, I don't think, but that's okay. And then I'm going to take the female half of my magnetic snap. And I'm going to take the gasket and lay it on top and then draw the 2 lines I need to cut out. Now I won't be putting, what's it called? Fray stopper on this because it's vinyl. Even though some vinyl does still fray, this one I promise will not. It's been sitting in a tub for over a week and it hasn't frayed, so that's a good sign. So I'm going to push that through, flip it over, add the gasket on, and then bend them out. If you're doing a turn lock instead, it does have instructions for that, but I am still waiting on mine to arrive. So that's that done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that alligator clip and clip them back together because we're moving on to a different part. So we're moving on to our belt channel piece. So much like before, we need to mark the center. And I'm going to mark it with this. I can eyeball the center really well because I've had so much practice at it. But still feel free to rule a line down the center if you don't think that you can eyeball the middle. That is okay if you can't. I couldn't at the start either. And so then we are going to bend both sides into the center like this. I'm going to rub it on the table just to help crease those sides a bit better. And then it wants us to stitch along this center bit along here. So about there. We're going to stitch, we're going to back stitch. We're going to come over to this side and do the same thing. Like so. And then it also wants us to stitch down the ends. I am going to trim off those tails. And then I'm going to stitch down this end like that. And then other end, I'm going to do the same thing. Like so. Trim off those tails. And this is now our belt loop attachment. From a distance, you can't really see my stitches, which is kind of cool. So we want to take our exterior. So I've got the exterior and my gusset here. So I'm going to take the exterior and measure down and line it up in the center. So there. So I want to put it there. So I'm now going to top stitch along this top edge. I'm going to back stitch. Instead of back stitching, you could also pull it through and then tie it off at the back if you wanted to. But my vinyl's busy enough that you can't really see the back stitching. It is an intense vinyl. That's why I chose it. They're a bit different. Okay, top stitch, we've done that. We're up to page 12, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, belt channel. So we want to push it up So it's going to sit kind of up like this. You don't want to stitch it down or you won't be able to get anything in. So we're just going to push it up a little bit like that to have like a hole basically. So push it up. In fact, we can even mark a line. So we can go, that's where it needs to be. And you could draw a line that's erasable, and then that's about how much up we want to go. So that's where I want it. I can eyeball that, but that's a good way to work it out if you need to. So it just needs to go up a little bit. Not crazy amounts, that's not going to help you, because then you'll make it too skinny. Hold it up, we're going to back stitch it and pull it out. And trim off the tails. So now, if I try really hard, I can get my finger in there. And then we are going to reinforce that by putting rivets in it. Bring these back. Grab my hole punch. So we're doing it just in the corners. So just past the stitching is where I'm going to punch my hole. And I'm going to do all 4 holes. Like this, and then I can switch hole punches. If you've only got 1 hole punch, you could probably do it in an order where you don't have to switch this around as much. So like while you're doing this, then also do the other like wristlet strap rivets or whatever, just so you're not switching back and forth as much. But I'm super lucky that I got given one of these, and then I got one in the half price sale. So I'm just pushing all 4 posts through. Now, if you've got rivets where you didn't buy the double capped end, now's a really good time to use them up because you're not going to see the back. So if you've got single capped rivets where only like the post is nice, use them now because you're not going to see this back bit, and that way you're not going to waste them. And I'm all about not wasting things. Okay. So now we just want to lay this down and squish them. I'm going to do all 4. And I always have a system so I don't accidentally miss some, because you don't want to do that either. Right, belt loop achieved. Moving on. Okay, so done that. Prepared the flap, right sides together. Right, so we're going to grab this. We're going to grab this. And at that line, we're going to line up the line that we drew on the flap with the top edge. And then we're just going to baste it together. So, you want to line it up in the center. Which if you can't eyeball, grab a ruler and just make sure that the gap at both ends is the same. If you can't eyeball things, you don't actually need to, so long as you can get the job done. So I'm going to go back to a joining stitch length rather than the 4. This is a basting stitch, so it's not like we're necessarily going to see it, but I want it to hold and be reinforced with the smaller stitches. My tail got stuck. Okay, that is now on. We are looking wonderful. Now to the front pocket, which is our funky looking piece. So I'm going to put this back in the box. I know I've got a lot going on in and out of the box, but I'm trying to stay organized and I'm trying to do it in the same order as the pattern. Because I already guarantee you I would have done it in a different order if I was just winging it. which I shouldn't do. So, what we need to do, which I have not yet done, is mark these markings onto here. So I'm going to grab a Chaco pen because this is black and otherwise we won't see it. And so I just need to mark the points with which I need to mark. So I'm going to do the top lot first. And then I'm going to come along. I'm going to do the bottom. So I can flip this over. So I'm just holding it back a bit so I can get to those edges. And then I'm going to take the ruler and rule the lines like this. And so now they are transferred on. I deliberately wanted to do this so that, you know, you could see. And then for this one, I'm going to use a friction pen. You could also just use a normal pen if you so desire. And then grab my ruler again. Do the same thing again. So transfer all of this on. To be honest, if I had used friction pencil or pen when I did this, it possibly would have faded already. So I'd have to redo it. Right. So now I've got all of the markings. So we are going to take this one, lay the exterior fabric pleated pocket front, wrong side up, and we've got the magnetic snap. We've marked all of that. We've done it to this piece. We're going to join these together like this, and we're going to stitch across the top. So I've got right sides together, and okay, here's just a little random thing that I do. Whatever fabric is lighter, I always put underneath because the feed dogs are more likely to drag it evenly than my thing on the top. So that's just another little trick so that your things stay even. Clips obviously help, but sometimes things slip. So by doing it this way, I am helping myself out. Okay, so I've stitched that. And then we're going to trim that down. So I'm going to grab my zigzag scissors again, because they did so well last time. They're not doing as well this time, not going to lie. They're already not doing well. Let's flip it this way. I think I had better luck with the softer part on top. So we're just trimming this down. Like that. So we're going to then flip this over. If you're adding a label, it suggests that you pop it here. Okay, so here's where we're going to get a little bit tricky. So I need to make this stay nicely over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the Tory squish all the way along this top edge. I know this is usually something I do at the end of a bag, but I need this to stay nice so that I can stitch those side bits. So I'm going to do it all the way along. I want to make sure that I push out that curved part there so that I'm getting it right on the seam. So if you don't know what the Tory squish is, if you haven't watched another video, it's where you grab it in 2 spots and then push it in opposite directions quite violently. What it does is it creases your vinyl so it's going to sit flatter. Or fabric. It does it to all things, but it's more designed for vinyl because fabric you can iron. Alright. On the side, the closest fold to the center, so that would be that one over there, fold the side back. So the linings are right side, like wrong sides together, like this. We want to fold it over like this. So I'm going to put my, actually, you know what I'm going to do to help my cause? I'm actually going to baste 1/8 of an inch along this bottom edge so that it sits where I need it to sit. And I'm just going to do it in the middle section because it's fighting me. And I don't feel like fighting with fabric. And losing, especially. So by doing that, I can still get into the sides and see all my markings. But now I'm not constantly trying to pull this down to be even. So we are going to take the innermost one, which is here, and then up the top, so you can just look into it, is here. So I'm going to mark it with 2 clips like this and then fold that like so. That looks about right. There to there. Okay. So then we are going to sew it. I'm going to manually crank 3, and then I'm going to go pull it back and go back and line it up with that first hole I made and stitch down. And then back stitch at the end. I care less about the end because that'll be in a seam, whereas that top edge, you're going to see it. And so then flip the lining so fabric is right sides up. On the same side, fold the outer line. So that is here to you just want to look in here. So like that. And then we want to put lines in. I'm going to put some clips on it to kind of help bend it into place. Like that. And so that's what we're going to get. And then once we're finished, obviously that will separate more. Top stitch, moving the other piece out of the way. So we're going to flip it over like this, and I'm going to come in here. So which way is it doing it from? I'm going to do it from here. So we're just going to top stitch. I really hope I'm doing this right. I guess we're about to find out if I did it right or not. Here. Ah! Look at that! Nailed it! And so now we're going to repeat all of that with the other side. But to make my life easier, I'm actually going to transfer with my friction texter the outside edge line coming up to there. I'm going to draw that line on that lining piece so that I can see it for that last step, because that was a little bit tricky. So I would like to just faintly draw the outer edge line on. And then I can take my hands and fold that one like that. And again, you can add some clips if you want to. I'm going to add clips because I'm going to stitch it from the top. Like that. So I'm going to start at the bottom, so I'm going to back stitch. So up towards that edge, and then when I get to the edge, I'm going to lift up my foot, lift up my needle, and come back through the last 3 holes like that to lock it in with minimal mess. You could also just back stitch if you're not confident doing it that way. That is also totally 100% okay. So now that I drew that line there, I can see that quite easily. And I can just bend it like so on that line, like that, and then stitch it. Yes. Haha. Look at us go. So there you go. Nailed it. So you got this like funky little look. Your edges all curve. It looks wonderful. I love this detail. I also possibly should have top stitched everything. But that's okay. So now, grab one of our body exteriors, which is this piece here. Line it all up. Grab some clips and clip it together like that, and then we're going to come and we're going to do the other edge or corner, whichever way you want to look at that. You also want to make sure that the lining is going to get caught. So if you don't catch the lining, it's going to gape, and we don't want that. Ah, look at that. That looks fabulous. Baste it. So we're going to baste. And then I'm adding a step because I did something different. So this next bit. So basting, you can make your stitches longer if you want to. I'm just doing it at 1/8 of an inch. So right on that edge. By basting it in place, this now becomes one piece to work with. So I highly recommend doing it. That is now one piece. Now, it says to grab your gusset and then just attach it. However, my gusset is in 2 pieces because I wanted the snakeskin print to go in the same direction. Because if it had gone upside down, it would feel different. And I didn't want that. So what I did was I just added 1/4 of an inch to the pattern piece so that I could do this. I'm going to stitch this together at 1/4 of an inch. So if you've got directional fabric or prints that you want to do, you just take the on the fold part and add whatever seam allowance you wish to do. So I chose 1/4 of an inch because I didn't need a lot. But you could choose any that you like. And so now that I've stitched it and back stitched it, just to help it sit nice and flat, I'm actually going to separate this open. And I'm going to top stitch each side. I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch, and I've also cranked it up to a 4, so it's now making a decorative stitching as well. And flick it around. I'm not going to trim off that tiny little tail. It's not worth my drama. It's all going in a seam anyway. Okay, and so now from the sides, this has the same texture. And I like that. Is my light flaring? Okay. We are going to take this and we are going to fold it and we are going to find the center. I'm all about the centers. Center here. While I'm doing centers, grab this one, find the center of this one as well. Possibly should have done it before I've added all this bulk. Because I knew it was coming, but that's okay. Right, center. We know where the center of this is. I just put stitch lines there so you can line that up. Now, the best way to, I guess, ease a curve is we're going to stick 3 clips along the bottom. And we don't just put 1 because 1 means it can pivot too much and move around. So I like to put at least 3. Then I'm going to skip this whole section here and come up and line up this top edge over here. And I'm going to work my way down. So I'm going to put 3 clips there as well. Then I'm going to come and do this other side and do the same thing. Now all of my clips are facing the gusset, which is this piece. Because I'm going to stitch it under the machine, the gusset is going to be side up. So now as we get closer to this corner, what you'll see is that it doesn't look like it fits. But that's because we're not treating it like a 3D object. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my fingers and push this so that it curves. And then, look at that, suddenly it fits. Because you have to treat it like a 3D object. Because that's what we're doing. We're taking a flat piece of fabric and making it go around a curve. So you can't expect it to sit when it's flat. Right? So now it's going to sit. See how it's now sitting up as opposed to this one that's sitting more flat. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to put 1 more clip there. So I'm going to basically push this, fold it down and push it in is pretty much what we're doing to make that curvy. Like that. Now it may not sit nicely on the table, but we don't care about that. What we care about is the stitching part. So we're going to go back to adjoining stitch length and we are going to stitch a couple. That was probably too many, but that's okay. Too many back stitches aren't all bad. It's just a waste of time and thread and stuff. Now, when you get to here, you're going to notice, and I can't, oh my God, I can't show you really. It's a bit hard to kind of maneuver. But this bit here is sticking up. So what you want to do is you want to push it diagonally, like at a 45-degree angle down. And you want to make sure that when you're stitching this, you're twisting it around so that you don't get little pinches in the corner. Straights are obviously quicker. I'm going to stop on a straight because it's easier. So again, I'm up to the next corner, how it's sitting up. I need it down out of my way. But I also don't want to stitch any pleats or anything in there. And then we get to the end and we back stitch. And so then, have a look in there and see how you went. You can even push it all the way out if you need to, just to have a look. But see how it's actually nice and smooth. I'm quite happy with that. I'm also very happy I didn't put any extra interfacing on this. This is insanely thick. I'm sure the next bit is clip away some bits. We're going to do that anyway. So I'm going to clip some of this excess bulk. I don't know if these scissors will go through it. No, they won't. I'm going to need to grab my other scissors, which means I am going to have to pause the video. All right, give me a second. These are my main vinyl cutting scissors. They are Class A knife edge. I just like them because they're solid. I believe they're drop forged. I don't really know what that means. I think it's where they just pour molten metal into a shape. I'm assuming that's what that means. I know I should know because my husband does forging, but I've never asked. Anyway, they are really good scissors. I like the knife edge more than the serrated edge. I'm also going to come up here and trim off some of this excess up the top, because I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to top stitch this at the end, and I do not want excess bulk where I don't need it. So I can just carve it out on an angle, so it comes out on an angle, but there's just like 1/8 of an inch left at the top. Okay, so now we're going to grab our other piece and do the same thing. So you might have to bend your flap in half so it stays out of the way. And so I would be inclined to just chuck a clip there. So now when I'm putting that in, I'm not trying to fight the flap as well as everything else. Oh, and a random door just slammed. So again, I want my clips to face the gusset, even though I'm holding it the opposite way. So I'm going to put 3 in the bottom, and then I'm going to come to the side. Sorry, I always clip in my lap. I find it easier when it's closer to my body. So that's just something you might want to take away from that. So I'm going to do 3 clips down, and this one should be easier to ease in because we don't have the extra layers. But that might not be the case, which is also okay. If you're new to like doing corners, practice makes perfect, and don't be disheartened. I have done plenty of corner where I didn't maneuver it properly under the machine, and so then it got little pinches and I had to unclip it. And then sometimes I'm just like, you know what? The pinch kind of looks cool, and if you do it in both corners, it looks like it's meant to be there. Make it part of the bag. Alright, so I've come down from this edge, and so now I've just got this last little corner, so I'm going to push this down. Now it's going to go a little bit wrinkly outside of the seam allowance part, and that's what it's meant to do. So don't worry about wrinkles, so long as they're not where you're going to stitch, they're on the other end of it. Like that. And I always put more clips in the corner. I know it doesn't necessarily look like it, there are a lot of clips, but more clips in the corner make it easier to do. Alright, so we're going to stitch this, and we need some double-sided tape. So I'm just going to pull this bag out of the way, and that slipped. So I need to come and hold that back down, and then manually just put my needle in, because that's now holding it in place. So this side's going to be slightly more challenging because we now have to push the whole rest of the bag out of the way to stitch. And I have used a really, really stiff vinyl, because apparently I like to challenge myself constantly. So we're going around. Now, if I keep stitching the way I am, I can see I'm going to get a ripple by the way that the bag is sitting. So what I need to do is I need to flatten that out where I'm about to stitch. So there you go. I did just do it. I don't really know how to explain it, but you just kind of push and maneuver the fabric so that there's no wrinkles in the path of the stitching. Doesn't matter what they do on each side, as long as at the line of stitching, everything is fine. And push that out of the way. Come around that corner and backstitch. Oh, nearly. I almost got a pinch. See there? It's not actually a pinch, but it's almost a pinch. Very, very tricky. All right, I'm going to cut off those tails. Then I'm going to come with my scissors and do that same, cut the seam. This is going to help the bag sit nicer when we turn it through as well, because there won't be so much of the bulk pulling. If you've used a thinner vinyl, you can use your zigzag scissors instead, if yours aren't blunt like mine. I will buy some new ones next time I go to a spotlight and I remember, I promise. So I can stop saying, oh, I don't think it's going to work. Okay, so now I can take this clip off because the flap's not really my issue anymore. And what do we want to do? So we want to put some double-sided tape along here. which last time I did this, I forgot to take it off because I'm funny like that. So I forgot to take the backing off and actually do what it's meant to do. So the idea of the double-sided tape here is right towards the end of the bag, we're going to stick it down. Now it says to turn the bag out and in again, but I'm confident that it's fine. So I am just going to leave it like that. I am going to push the flap down so it's going to sit as flat as possible. So when I'm inserting the lining, it will be easier. So we can pop that aside now because that bit's done. And we're moving on to strap connectors. Now I'm not doing strap connectors because I instead am going to put in grommets. I convinced you all that grommets are awesome and then I stopped using them in videos. So I'm going to show you how you can replace certain things with grommets. So instead of the strap connectors that we sew in, at the end of the bag, I'm going to insert some grommets. So I'm just explaining that because we're skipping that step. But otherwise, do your strap connectors now. Alright, so we are up to the card slots. So I clipped all the card slot bits together. I'm starting to get quite clever at this. I'm going to put the tub away now because there's only 3 bits left. And they're all clipped together, so they're all going to sit nicely. Zipper pocket, slip pocket, card slots. So we're going to take this, and I have already pre-folded my card slots. So I just marked the markings that they told me to do, and I have set them. So what we're going to do, back and forth, and we're going to top stitch along each edge. So I'm going to grab the first fold and then fold that back down, and I'm going to stitch, back stitch, back stitch, pull it out, bend the next one back, do the same thing. So we're going to stitch, back stitch, back stitch. Now you can crank up your stitch length for this if you want to have it as a more decorative size, especially if you've done like a contrasting thread color. That always looks really nice, I think. Snip, snip. Now if you're going to make these in pairs, make the card slots in pairs, because then you can just chain stitch one after the other. Okay. Card slots top stitched. Lay card slot piece so everything is folded in place. Using a fabric marker, put a line down the center. I can do that. So again, my friction pen. I get these from the supermarket. You can also get them from like Officeworks and stuff like that. There's my center. So I'm going to mark it like so. Done all the card slots. So now we're going to top stitch. Okay, so we're going to start this side, and I'm going to stitch just 1/8 of an inch the side of the card slot bit. And we're always going to start from the bottom up. And you want to go slowly so that all the layers don't move underneath your hands, because there is nothing worse. And then we're going to come across like that, and we're going to go back down the other side. And again, we're going slowly so nothing moves. Once there's no layers, you can go a bit faster. And then from the bottom to the top, I'm going to baste the sides. I'm going to make sure that everything's lined up, and you're going to hold it firmly in place while you baste it. Otherwise they shift and then you don't get beautiful straight card slots. You'll get weird ones. Now for the other side, I am going to go bottom to top again. So I want to go here, And then I'm going to hold all of this firmly. So I'm pushing down with quite a lot of pressure so nothing shifts. Because it does get to a point where there's quite a lot of layers. And the point of basting is so that they won't move. Like so. I imagine what's next. So now we're going to take our 2 curvy bits and we're going to stitch them on. So you obviously want the straight edge on the straight edge and the curve will be facing inwards like so. Look at that, beautiful. Off we go. And then, okay. So I'm going to stitch them and then we're going to fold them back and we're going to top stitch them. So rather than me doing that in 2 steps, I'm going to show you how I would do it in 1. So we're going to stitch down. I am going to back stitch. Then I'm off by like 1 stitch off the fabric so I can swivel it. And then I'm going to fold it back and top stitch up that same edge. But I'm top stitching this piece, not the card slots. Like that. So that has now been stitched and I only had 1 lot of tails. So this works the same from top to bottom as it does bottom to top because we've already basted everything in place. So we can stitch, back stitch. Now technically I'm not on the fabric, but instead of pulling it out, we're just going to pivot it around, fold this open and back, and then top stitch down that edge. Like so. Back stitch, pull it out. I'm also going to get new snips while I'm at the shop. Okay. Ta-da! We've done that page. Next page. Lay small slip pocket right sides up to the shorter edge at the top. So that is this. This is our slip pocket here. So we're going to fold it like this. And we're going to stitch down each side. Like this. I'm just going to pop that over there. I've got a lot of stuff going on over here. So I'm going to stitch. I'm going to back stitch at both ends. Love a good back stitch. Pull it out, snip it off. And then we're going to clip the corners diagonally so that there's less bulk for when we turn this through. So I'm going to use my fingers. So I'm going to push my finger all the way into the corner and then kind of join like that and just push. And that should get most, if not all, of your pocket out. And then I'm just going to finger press this. You could also iron it if you want to. Now I'm not totally happy with that corner. I didn't pull it out enough. So I'm going to take my stiletto and I'm just going to dig it into the corner and then slightly kind of flick it out. I don't want too much pressure. I don't want to stab it all the way through so I wreck the stitching. But I just want it to come all the way out. It's going to make for a nicer, crisper corner. Right, so now we're going to top stitch that. Like so. Trim off the tails, as always. Okay, and so then we're going to take this piece and we're going to line this up in the center. So again, best way to find the center, fold it in half and clip it. And we already know where the center of the other one is because we drew a line. So we're going to line that up there like so. And then we are going to top stitch down the sides. Now, if you want to, you can add some clips to hold it in place at the bottom. I'm going to stitch bottom to top to make sure that I know that it's lining up. So we're going to stitch, back stitch, and up we go. Like that. This is fun. I'm liking the layers. And then I'm going to stitch bottom to top on this side as well. again so I know it's all lined up. If you stitch top to bottom and it moves, it may not reach the bottom, in which case you won't hide your edge, which is not something that I personally want. And then we're going to trim that off. We can take off our clips now. And so, oops, missed one. So now I've got a slip pocket. I am actually going to stitch along that bottom, just so it's shut, and I can treat it as one piece. I basted it, I didn't backstitch. That's probably naughty, but it's also not a forever stitch. So now I've got our slip pocket and our card slots. It's lovely. Moving on to our zipper pocket. So again, I kept all the pieces together. So this is my zipper facing. I didn't put any interfacing on it for lots of reasons, but the main one is because I'm out of interfacing. So I'm just going to draw my zipper box on here. Yeah, 1, 2. So this is just a normal pen. I could have grabbed the other one, but I didn't, such is life. And then I'm going to draw down the sides. I'm obviously not giving you, this is also not perfectly in the center, but that's okay. I could have done it perfectly in the center, but it's like an extra step to find, so I just didn't. But it's in the center enough that it's going to work out for me. I know that sounds lazy, but you know what? This bit doesn't even get seen, so long as you're not right on the edge, you're okay. So we're going to take this and we are going to put it, where are we going to put it? I'm going to put it right there. Now mine's out of whack with that because I didn't put this perfectly in the center. So I have adjusted accordingly. So it's going there like that. So now I'm going to stitch around the box that I just drew. Now you need to draw a different size box depending on what size zipper you are using. So please pay attention to that. If you're using a size 3 zip, it will be a different size to a size 5 zip. I today am using size 5 because that's what size my zipper pull is. And I'm using a funky black one that they accidentally sent me. They just sent me this loner black zip in a bag of other stuff that I ordered. It wasn't even gunmetal grey. I think it come in silver. But anyway, so I've got a zip. And I just figured since there's only one zip on this project and everything else I'm using is quite dark, it should look nice. So I don't throw out anything if I can help it. So now I'm snipping down the center of the box and I'm going to triangle out those corners. And then we're going to go to the other end and we're going to do the same thing. So this line that I'm cutting in the center doesn't need to be 100% in the center, which is why I didn't draw it. So long as it's in the middle and you're not really, really close to one edge. Because what we want to do, and I am going to use the iron for this, is I'm going to first press both those sides towards the center. Then I can push them through the hole. And I always use my thumbs to push out those corners. I find that that works best for me. And then once you've flipped it through, you need to re-iron. So I am actually going to hit pause again. I know I said I wasn't going to, but I don't have any way to set up the iron while I've got the laptop here. So I am just going to go and iron that so that it's super flat and pretty. And then we can insert our zip. Alrighty. So that is now ironed beautifully and flat. I have my zipper here. I have melted the end. So every time I make a cut, I melt the end I've cut and I melt the end off my zipper by the meter or yard, wherever you live. So I like my zipper facing me when I'm installing it. It's just something that I like. Some people prefer it away. So what I do, and I've noticed I always put the left on first, then I'm going to take the right and maneuver it in. Now I've only got the zippers halfway through. So I don't push it all the way through. And then if I gently push on that, you need to make sure that they're lining up in there. I know you can't really see because it's black on black, but they need to look even. And then I'm going to put my finger up against there and pull these sides down each side of my finger, and I do this kind of motion to get it started, but you don't want to go too far, you'll fall off the end. So that's how I get my zipper pull on. Anyway, probably didn't even need to put it on yet. It would have been easier if I had kept it off for this part, but that's okay. So we're going to do fabric right sides up. Now, if your fabric's directional, you want your zipper at the top end. And I'm just going to stitch it along the edge. So I'm only going to stitch it along like the 1/8 of an inch from the edge, because this is just to hold them together. We still need to sew them in, and we'll sew it closer in a minute. But I am still going to back stitch and then trim it off. Throw those tails in the bin, and then I'm going to grab the next bit. Again, top edge. Not that this has a top and a top and a bottom, but just if yours does, something to keep in mind. So I'm going to stitch and back stitch, and I'm going to do the same on this side. Line it all up, and off we go. Oop. Okay, did I just run out of bobbin thread? I did. Right, so we need to do another one. I'm going to do this one on camera because A, I just turned the camera off, and B, because I'm here to remind you to oil your bobbin case, I guess. So I always like to get it started because I don't have a million hands. And I also always lift my foot up on my industrial. Domestics, I know they don't move, but on industrials they do. And if you keep them down, your pressure foot will actually get attacked by your feed dogs because there's nothing in between them. So I'm going to get it started until my end snaps off that I'm holding. And then I'm going to take my fabric oil doodad. So I got this for like 50 cents from Spotlight. And I'm going to push the whole machine back on its hinges. And at the bobbin case, there's like some pointy spikes. And then they show like a raised line. And I'm just going to put 3 dots of oil on that, because that bar can actually get quite hot. And they have a little piece of whatever, fabric, foam, something, that actually absorbs the oil I just put in there. Oh my god, don't do that. There we go. So I tend to also, when I'm winding a bobbin, you want to put your foot down flat. This is one of those few times where I encourage this, because it's going to help filter all the oil through your machine if your foot's down flat. I also never wind my bobbins all the way full. I only do about 3/4. I find that when I do them full, they get caught up and they carry on, and I'm just not interested in any of that. So by doing that little bit less, I know I have to make more bobbins in the long run, but I'm wasting less thread from all the issues that it gives me otherwise. A full bobbin on this particular machine doesn't like to do reverse, and because I'm constantly back stitching, it's not in my best interest to make my bobbin totally full. That's all. Your machine might work differently, but if you are having issues when you put a freshly filled bobbin in, try just doing a little bit less and see if that helps you, because I promise it helps me. Okay, so now what we want to do is we're going to lay this out flat, and I want my zipper pull to close to the left. That's what I do in all of my stuff. You'll hear me say it a lot. So I've got it pointing to the left, and I've got it sitting, I know you can't see because it's black on black, but I've got it sitting on the teeth. So see there, sit it flat on the teeth so that it's not in the way while I lay this over. And then I'm just gonna line it all up and we're gonna stitch all the way around. So I'm on a joining stitch length. If you want to, you can go up to a slightly more decorative stitch length. So you could go up to maybe 3.5 if you felt the need. I do not feel the need, so I'm not going to. But if you've used an opposite color, I probably would feel the need because it's, you know, decorative and stuff. Needle down and pivot right in that corner. One more stitch, needle down and pivot again. So I will be zipping my zip out of the way once I've done a bit. I don't know if you can tell on the video or not, but my bobbin case is suddenly, like my sewing is currently a lot quieter than it was. That's because of the oil I put in. So as a general rule of thumb, I always put 3 drops of oil every time I wind a bobbin, because it can only hold a little bit of oil. So if you do it regularly, I got taught this by a sewing machine repair guy. So I've had this, the whole time I've had this machine, it's had 1 service. And I've had it for, a long time now. All right, so when we flip this over, you'll notice that there is an excess. We're gonna cut that excess off, but make sure you don't cut your pockety bit. Right. Now, I'm just going to stitch down the edge. Do they want us to turn off that other edge? Done that, done that, done that. I'm up to here. Right. So, in this particular pattern, they ask you to fold this edge up like so. So to do that, I am going to need some clips so it stays where I tell it to. And then you want to match that on the other side. So the idea is that we're not going to have any raw edge for when we're trying to turn it out later. I do like it. It's just a lot of fiddling right now. But I'll do it because the pattern says to do it. There's nothing wrong with it. It is a really good idea. I'm just lazy and like doing it the way I've learnt to do it. So now I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to stitch bottom to top. So I'm going to stitch, I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to go up all the way to the top and then back stitch there. And so that is now your side stitched together. Trim off those tails, put the clip away. And then this one, we're going to go top to bottom because I like to sew with this piece on top so that I can pull it out of the way and I can make sure that I'm not accidentally stitching it, because that to me is quite important. Okay. Trim there, trim there. Zipper pocket inserted. I am now going to open the zipper pocket so I don't forget later. And then next up is our slip pocket. I love how many pockets are in this. For a small bag, it has a lot of pockets. I'm quite happy. Even though I've never made it before, I'm quite happy with the amount of pockets. There's just a gazillion. Alright, stitch that, trim off. If you want to, you can iron this. I'm going to finger press it. So when I would iron it, I would lay one down and I would push the iron up so that this is pushed up. So I'm going to finger press and do that. And then you re-iron it and fold it over and you'll find that you get a really crisp line. I actually got a really crisp line. I didn't even use an iron. So now again, we're going to top stitch this. I'm going to do the same top stitch length as I did on my other slip pocket on the other side. Back stitch always. And then grab this pocket piece and we're going to stick it over like so. And see how it like pops out the top? Now, I'm going to fold this up and then I'm going to baste this whole pocket on to here. But I don't want to get this pocket, so I'm just going to push it up out of the way. So we're just in our seam allowance so that we won't see these. It's just easier when this is all one piece. So that's what we've done. We've just created it so it's now one bit. Voila! Slip pocket, card slots, zipper pocket. There's a front pocket, so many pockets. Oh, and then they want us to do that center thing. So we're going to have 2 pockets. If you require a bigger pocket, you could leave it as 1. But again, I am for the most part trying to follow the pattern. So we're going to make it 2. But that would be a really good pocket if you wanted to put your phone in a pocket, but we're still going to have the gusset, so it'll still live there anyway. This is just to have like a super organized mini bag, and I'm very happy with that idea. All right, so I'm pulling my zipper pocket up the top so it's not under where I'm stitching. I'm stitching 1/8 of an inch up one side. I'm going across probably 2 stitches. And then we're going to go down the other side. I like that I did that after the other stitching because it held everything in place for me, which was lovely. Now I believe we're up to gusset. Now this gusset I left as a whole because this fabric is like very non-directional. It's actually a quilt backing for anyone that's interested. I bought a bunch of it because this was my Christmas outfit. So I made the boys matching clothes and me a matching dress. And I still have a bunch left over because I was super careful with how I cut the pieces and because it was very wide. So 3 meters of the quilt backing got me a circle skirt dress plus my kids and my husband's, I think I did shorts. Luke didn't want a shirt. And then this, and then I've still got some more, so I could still do another lining. All right, so I've gone along the bottom. I'm now going to come and do the top section. Now, I don't think it matters which side you do first, so I've just grabbed the side I had. That's not a big deal. And then, so, now that we're at the corner, I'm going to tuck it under so that it's a 3D object. See how it fits beautifully? It's a sign. If it's not fitting beautifully though, all right, troubleshooting. I know I'm going to do a video on this later, but if it's not fitting properly, take off 2 clips either side and ease it all through. I will show you what I mean in that video that I'm going to do. But you can ease out a curve that doesn't fit to make it fit because the pattern designer, generally speaking, would know and has made it so it fits. So if it's not fitting, unfortunately, yes, it is you, but I will show you how to fix it. Okay, so see here, see how I've got this? This is potentially going to give me trouble when I'm stitching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more clips to hold the ruffles outside of my seam allowance that I am doing. So the clips are really good in the sense that they'll show you where the seam allowance is. That's why I love Wonder Clips. That's just one of the many reasons. All right, so I just did it again. I created the pinch somewhere else. So I'm just going to add an extra clip to make sure it doesn't have one. And see, a few extra clips and the pinch goes away. So again, gusset side facing up. We're going to stitch with the same seam allowance we used for the outside. Around, across, around, and up. It's always easiest to get your thread to come out easily if your needle is all the way up or all the way down. If you're finding that you're pulling and it's not coming, it's because your needle's not enough up or enough down. Now, I felt this right on the very, very edge, it got caught in that seam, but it was literally like 2 threads. So it has just pulled out, but just make sure you think about that. Because you don't want to stitch your zipper pocket. Now I am already imagining I'm going to have a really hard time turning this bag through because of how thick my vinyl is. So I'm thinking about that now, and I'm going to show you how I combat that problem. Alright, so I've done some clips along the bottom. I'm now going to come up to the side. All my clips need to face the gusset, because that's how we roll. Gusset side up is the easiest way to stitch it, unless you've got a cylinder arm machine, and then quite often it's easier to do it the other way. But we're not on the cylinder arm machine today, so we're doing it this way. I'm going to start doing a lot more videos on that, and I'm even going to do a video on how to turn your domestic into more of a cylinder arm machine. I haven't done it yet because I don't really know where I'm going to set up to do the video. It's not really going to work out on the edge of this like I did with the buttonholes. Buttonholes are different. I don't really need to do anything. Actual sewing, I'm going to need to get another desk in here. There's no room, so it might just have to be like a day job. Okay. So, again, lots of clips, lots of excess clips in the corner. We're going to put it gusset side up, and we're going to do the same as we did to the outside and push the other side out of our way. This shouldn't be too difficult to do. And because I basted all of those pockets, oh, I was going to leave the bottom of this open. That's right. We're going to get the bag through that hole. See how I just stopped then and lifted my foot? That was me maneuvering the fabric to make sure it wasn't going to get a pinch. I just realized I did that. So I stopped with the needle in the down position, and then I lifted my foot and then just kind of smoothed the fabric so that I didn't get any kind of a pinch. That's a subconscious thing that I'm not aware I was doing until right then. So there you go. Okay, so I'm not going to cut this bottom section in case I'm going to unpick it to turn the bag through. If I can't get it through the zipper pocket, I'm going to show you alternative ways. But other than that, I am going to cut all of the rest of the seam allowance down. And I am going to cut the bottom seam allowance on the side where the zipper pocket is. Because I won't be cutting that side open. I will be leaving it well and truly closed. Right. Bit of excess. The main reason that we cut that down is, well, there's 2 reasons. 1, it will make your curve sit nicer. And 2, with the less seam allowance, it's going to sit more nicely inside of the bag. So we're going to turn this right sides out. Like that. And it looks lovely. And then we're going to take our other piece and we're going to put this inside. Now, I want my... Actually, does it matter? Does she suggest? Do we have the card slots out the back, or do we have... It looks like the zipper pocket's on the front edge. So I'm going to take the zipper pocket and I'm going to put it against the front edge. I'm going to shove it in and then I'm going to start clipping. Now, I'm going to clip the short side first, and I'm going to make sure that the seams are lining up in the corner. I do one there, and that's the wrong way. And I want my clips to face the lining piece because that's how I'm going to put it through the machine, because it's not a cylinder arm. And again, if this was a cylinder arm machine, I would literally do it the opposite way. So you use your stuff differently depending on what you're using it for. So I'm now going to come and do the other end because I want those seams to line up. Everything else will just line up eventually, as long as you've got your corners all good. Now, just so it's not going to slip around, I am going to add a bunch of clips on here because I don't know how my lining is going to go. Even though it's interfaced, that's not necessarily the be-all and end-all of stuff. I also need to make sure that I've pulled that down enough so that it's in like that. Now, I'm not really going to be able to clip this back edge because of the flap excess, but that's okay. I'm going to start there. So I'm going to just pull this top over out of the way and slide it under. And you just want to kind of feel to make sure it's lined up, and then off we go. So I'm bringing the bag around as I'm stitching because we're essentially stitching a giant circle. I know it's a weird shaped circle, but it is. There's no stopping and starting, so it is pretty much a circle. Now this is fighting me again because of the choice of vinyl I chose. I did not pick something easy. But that's also why there's no interfacing of any kind on the vinyl, because it is super firm already. And I think I'm about to have a very hard time trying to turn this through the zipper pocket. I actually don't think it's going to work. There's just too much going on. So, to fix that, we're going to take the end that I didn't cut, and we're just going to cut the stitches. Now, I hate unpicking. So if you cut every third stitch on one of the sides, right, you can just come in and trim every third stitch. Sometimes you can push it to 4. Don't push it any more than that or this won't work. So I'm just going to cut every third stitch or every fourth stitch all the way along there, like so. I can grab the other side, usually, and just lift it up and it should all come out. I'm not sure why that's not working. Oh, there it goes. So you can just pull. You just need to get an end. Alright, so if I just pull that, see how it all just come undone for me. Fun little trick I learnt from, I don't even remember who. Alright, so I'm going to grab a corner and I'm going to push the corner in. Now this is going to be really, really difficult. My nails are to the point where I need to get them trimmed. They're almost too long and this is very, very stiff. So I've got the corner in. Now I'm just trying to pull this lining over the bag. So you want to turn the lining so it's right sides out and just slowly pull it over the bag. Once the whole bag's enveloped in the lining, you know you're going to be right. So I'm also going to grab this flap because it's fighting me. So we're going to pull the flap through so that there's less bulk. And then again, I'm just going to sorry, that's my very, very Aussie accent there. Just gonna do that. Just going to pull everything out. Now, see this corner? I'm gonna have to stick my hand in and push it out. If I wasn't using this vinyl, I would highly recommend putting some piping in this bag. I think it would look lovely. Okay, we're out. There was no way that was going to go through the zipper. I know it's about the same size, but the zipper pocket has different restrictions compared to the bottom of the bag. There's more movement in the bottom. So now I'm just going to pull the lining back through the zipper pocket so that I can stitch it back shut again. Now I know it lines up because it was already stitched. I'm not going to clip it together. I'm going to be kind of lazy and just start stitching. I'm going to start probably 3 or 4 stitches back from where it's open, because those stitches technically aren't like tied down. There's no back stitching on them because I cut them open. So you just want to make sure that you're going to run over a few of them to make sure it's all locked in. know this looks like it's being difficult, but it's actually just because of the shape that we're doing. Okay, so now that it's done, I'm going to cut off the excess here because, again, I want this to sit nice and snugly inside the bag. And if it's not fighting with that much fabric, it's going to be a good day. So we can push that in. And then I'm just going to pull out the zipper pocket. Now it should just have all these edges folded under. It would have if I had have ironed it. It's fine. I can just use some clips. You could also use pins because it's a lining. However, if you use waterproof lining, don't put pins in it. You're putting holes in your waterproof lining. Even though it's not waterproof where the seam is, you don't really need to make it worse. It's still water resistant. So there, and there, and there. That's a lot of clips, I know, but I just felt like it. So now we're just going to stitch that shut. If you need to change colors, you don't want this to stand out. So if you've been stitching with a stand-alone kind of contrasting stitch color, you may want to switch back to something more mellow. You could also put your little tag. I probably should have said that before we stitch this up. But if you've got a little fabric tag, there would be a really nice place to put it. I didn't put my logo on this because I don't have any fabric tags at the moment, which is something I should probably consider getting. And because it's so textured, I felt like it would look funny, so I just didn't bother. So now we just need to push all the lining in. And do we top stitch? That's the big question. We are going to top stitch. And I just did it again, where I didn't take off that double-sided tape to stick that down. Well, that's annoying, but not the end of the world. So I'm just going to push the lining right into the corners and push it all down. And then I'm going to start adding clips to this edge. Now, because I already cut down all the bulk here, this is going to be quite simple to stitch. If you're worried, don't stitch it. If you've got a cylinder arm machine, go stitch it on that. Because in a perfect world, I would want to stitch this from the top down. So this doesn't lift up, so I can't go around my machine. Whereas domestics have that cool removable bit so that you can do things like sleeves and, in this case, the bag. So I'm going to have to stitch it from the lining side up, unless I want to turn the whole bag inside out. But that feels like something I don't want to do. So I'm going to crank it up to a size 4 stitch length. And I'm going to move the clips over there while I do this first part, because otherwise the flap's just going to knock them over anyway. So I want to pull this out. I'm going to start here. I'm not going to back stitch because I'm going to go all the way around. But I am going to try and fold this bit out of the way. Now Scully can come back. And we're going to bring it round and down and round. And we're just going to go slowly. There's no hurry. Now, if you're new to top stitching or you're worried about the bulk, just stitch with a full 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm doing an 1/8 of an inch because I like to torture myself, apparently. And I'm just, you can see I'm just pulling the bag around. And that's why I'm going slowly. I want it to stay where I want it. And then technically, if you did it her way, you would be finished. But I am still going to add some grommets. Alright, so now that I'm back to the start, I'm just going to do 2 stitches and 2 back stitches. And that is my top stitching done. Which is subtle, but still necessary. And I probably should have top stitched this. But I'm not super mad about the fact that I didn't. Ah, look at that. So see, bag looks when I technically finished. See how this doesn't actually look super neat? That's because it needs a good Tory squish. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll it in our fingers like this and then violently shake it in opposite directions. And what that's doing is it's creasing it and helping it to sit where it's meant to. And I know you might look like a crazy person for doing it, but who cares? Nobody's watching. Well, you guys are watching, but I'm still okay with it. So I've just done that for like a little bit and see how it's already sitting nicer? It also looks like I've got a pinch here. I don't, I just need to roll it out. So sometimes you might need to stick your hand in there and give it a bit of a... It's also easier to do it close to your body. You've got more force behind you than if I'm doing it out here like this. Although it is a good arm workout. So I suppose, you know, look at that however you will. There you go. So, that's the bag done, technically. And if you did the D-rings, you are done. However, I just wanted to do something a little bit different because apparently I can't ever do anything the way it's written. So I'm going to take out that hole punch and I'm going to put in my bigger one, which is the one that's got the big cool hole. Now, the only downside to this particular hole punch is that the hole punch looks the same as the rivet press. And I don't love that. So I found one online that's like this with the pointiness, but it's going to punch the holes better. So I'm probably going to buy one. And if it works out well, I will send you all the link, I guess. Right, so I'm going to hang this over. You're not really necessarily going to be able to see, but I'm going to hang this over the edge of the table so that I can get the bag into where I want. So I want this pretty close to the edge. And then I'm just going to push down with like my whole weight. My whole body weight required that. And then it still didn't cut it all properly. But it has punctured it enough that I can see, and I'm just going to grab some scissors and finish it off. That was possibly my fault, not the machine's. It could also be blunt. I do use it a lot. I don't know how long they're meant to last. I don't know if I'm meant to get them sharpened. It's something I should potentially look into. Right. So now I've got this cool hole. I'm going to do the other side, and then we're going to add some fray stopper glue to the lining, because the lining is fabric. And I just don't want it to die on me. Or whoever ends up with the bag if I don't keep it. This fabric would actually be really, really cool if you then did like a Hogwarts Slytherin lining. I could get behind that. Okay, so fabric glue. We're just going to add a little bit to the lining. So again, get it into the nozzle. You can tap it, you can squeeze it. And then we're just going to put a little bit around the edges. But not lots. You just kind of want to tap them. There we go. Right. Leave that for a couple of seconds while we change this over. Take those ones out. You always put the base in first and then the top. You'll find it's way easier. For anyone that's never had one or struggles, always put the bottom piece in first. So now we're just going to grab our grommet and we're going to put the bigger side on the outside so it's pretty. And then I'm going to take the grommet. Now it has got a curve, so you want the high edge to sit up, which I know might seem contrary to what you were doing, but that's the way it's meant to go. So it might take a little bit of maneuvering to get it in. And then we're going to put the outside down, and then from the top it's just going to squish like so. And now we have this really cool grommet. And I just think that this was a fun way to use up excess grommets you got laying around, because you only need 2. I'm about to release a pattern next month. I'm starting to design it, and it technically takes 8 grommets, and I'm going to be selling them in packs of 10. So you'll have 2 left over if you wanted to go and purchase this bag and make this. Right, grommets, beautiful. Matches in with the bag really nicely. Take that shut, and then if you wanted to just have a wristlet strap, it just comes out the side like that. I think that's really fun. And then both of these will fit as well, because I've put them close to the top edge. So that's just something you want to think about. You want them fairly close to the top edge. And I kind of want to keep this bag. It's really cool. Do I need another bag though? Will I use a green leather one? I do love green. I don't know. There you go, guys. So you can do it that way. You could feed it through the back here and have it as a belt, like a waist belt bag. It's got lots of options. I really love this. This is a good pattern. Not that the other ones are crap. I've never said that. But this is really cool. I'm excited. All right. So anyway, that is how I have made this bag. Thank you for staying tuned. Until the next one, guys. Bye.